I wanted to bring today's episode to the podcast talking all about CoQ10. Many of the fertility recommendations out there tell us to take CoQ10. It is really important to take it for both egg and sperm health. We are talking about what types of CoQ10 to consider, what the studies are showing us about CoQ10, how much CoQ10 to take. And this is for both male and female fertility. So excited for you to listen. Let's go. Hey, Katie, nice to have you back on.
Hello, nice to be here.
Great. So today we're digging into CoQ10. I think many times in the fertility community, a top recommendation is to take coenzyme Q10 as part of your foundational supplements. Many people that we work with and that I've spoken with, they are also taking CoQ10. So I just wanted to dig into this today to make sure you're taking the right type, why it's so important, what the studies are showing us. And so, so why is CoQ10 so important for fertility, Katie?
Yeah, you're right that the CoQ10 is seen as a little bit of a star of the show when it comes to fertility supplements. It is one that a lot of people who have started doing a bit of research or reading books will be aware of. And the reason it is so important for both male and female side is because it's essentially because of its antioxidant mechanisms. It's a really potent antioxidant, and there are lots of different antioxidants that we look at and that we talk about in the context of fertility. But it's the CoQ10 is it's like a fat soluble antioxidant, and it's oil based, and it's needed where it becomes really important is because it's used in something called the electron transport chain, which in biochemistry supports the mitochondria in the cell. Now, if anyone can remember from their school biology days, the mitochondria in the cell is the component of the cell that is it's like the battery, it's the energy center for the cell. Okay, so when we're talking about both, so eggs and sperm, they are cells, right? They are so eggs, in the ovary are called oocytes, and so it's those cells, those oocyte cells, they have got this mitochondria, and it's the mitochondria that actually helps to sustain them and helps them to actually do their job. And if the mitochondrial health of those cells is not working very well, then we've got risk that they're not going to be they're not going to fertilize so well, and they're not going to be a healthy egg cell. And the same for the sperm, right? It's we want them to be good, healthy cells because they're going to go on to create a baby. And so the integrity and the health of those two individual cells, the sperm and the egg, they really matter. And this is why CoQ10 has been dubbed as just so important for reproductive health overall.
Like we were talking about, and I've talked about this in a number of episodes, and actually interviewed Dr. Shauna Swan, who's done a lot of research on the health of sperm and how it's really impacted by our environment. So, with the plastics and the pesticides, it's so detrimental to sperm, and sperm quality has declined over 50% in the last 40 years. So it's really important to do things to help both the egg and the sperm. So let's talk about some studies here, and what are we seeing around CoQ10.
Yeah, so it's been shown. So CoQ10. I mean, talking about this cellular health, it's been shown to inhibit DNA oxidation. So this what oxidation is bad news, because it means that that cell then has become damaged by free radicals, and it's become subject to oxidative stress. So the ubiquinol, or the CoQ10, we'll talk about the ubiquinol piece in a moment, but the CoQ10 is protecting the cells. So it's protecting it from the damage of free radicals, of which there are many. Damage from free radicals is far reaching reaching in the modern world. You touched on some of the things around environmental toxins, but also from the food we eat. Heavily ultra processed foods are going to cause oxidative stress to the body, and that is going to have a knock-on effect for these cells. So whilst I feel while I'm talking that it's almost part of the reason it's a superstar is because people might think, oh, well, I can carry on living my, super oxidative stress driving lifestyle, and this will solve all the problems. It's not that. Like we do want to be addressing the level of oxidative damage that we're exposed to, but we do know that the CoQ10 helps to have protective effect, and not only that, but CoQ10 supplementation has been shown to in women improve and in men, so improve egg quality, sperm quality, and pregnancy success rates.
Yeah, they've got one randomized controlled study found that taking CoQ10 before trying to conceive improved ovarian response and embryo quality in young women and decreased ovarian with decreased ovarian reserve, which is we support couples with low AMH and high FSH, diminished ovarian reserve, and premature ovarian insufficiency. And so this is one of our, CoQ10 being one of our fundamental supplements.
Yeah, exactly. So that ovarian health is key, and what we need to remember is that as you grow older, as you age, a natural part of that aging process is that your levels of CoQ10 will decrease as you age. And so taking a CoQ10 supplement can actually help to protect some of that process and help to protect from, so it's mitochondrial dysfunction. So thinking about that cellular energy, it's mitochondrial dysfunction that can speed up that reproductive aging. And as you say, it's not your reproductive aging, whilst it does correlate to our biological age. It is also the case that like some people have been exposed to reproductive aging far earlier in life than what you would expect. And this is the whole part of the whole low AMH, high FSH, premature ovarian insufficiency picture. So it's really, when we're thinking about the health of our eggs, it's a really, really important part of the equation.
Absolutely. So let's talk about ubiquinol and kind of what we're seeing in studies there.
Yeah, so it's I think I mentioned already, it's been shown to inhibit this DNA oxidation, so the damage from free radicals. And a study published in Fertility and Sterility showed that supplementation of 600 milligrams, so quite a high dose of CoQ10 daily by older women. So again, thinking about this reproductive age and that egg health declining over time, it improved both egg quality and fertilization rates. And for men, the concentration of CoQ10 in the blood, because it's something that you can measure, has been shown to correlate with key semen parameters like sperm concentration, motility, morphology. And that was at 200 milligrams, 300 times a day, not 300, 3 times a day.
And then also it's also important for obviously for reproductive health for men and women. And then it can also have other benefits for your health as a whole. So what are those?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like what we always talk about, Sarah. It's the reproductive system is not a standalone system. It is a part of a living, breathing body. And so what is helpful for our reproductive health is often also helpful elsewhere. And so if we think about something like CoQ10, which is helpful in the context of this cellular decline with age and the mitochondrial dysfunction and the DNA, really, these some of these conditions that we're living with now, long-term non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular disease, all of those things that the CoQ10 is particularly important for. And so things like like heart failure, cardiovascular disease, blood pressure, cholesterol, and even things in the research around like sports performance, for things like endurance training training, and also even for in migraines. So there's tons of research across different areas whereby CoQ10 has been found to be helpful. And we know in particular that for example, I know here in the UK and in North America as well, tons and tons of people who have been diagnosed with hypercholesterolemia. Well, these are my words there, but you know what I mean. High cholesterol are diagnosed with statins, and statins. So having high cholesterol or kind of being at higher risk for cardiovascular disease, that in itself means that probably your CoQ10 levels are a bit depleted. What the statins do is actually deplete that even more, because they actually block some of your CoQ10 synthesis. So it's helpful in a lot of contexts, because there are so many things whereby this oxidative stress, i.e. our general life in the modern world, can impact our health, and the CoQ10 helps to buffer that.
And so we've got ubiquinone and ubiquinol. So what's the difference, and what are we looking for here?
Yes. So it's to know that. So when we're taking this thing as a supplement, it's to know that this is something that naturally we produce within the body, right? And so we are producing it endogenously. We are, we don't need to get all of our CoQ10 from external sources, but there are circumstances like that I've just been through, whereby our bodies are either our CoQ10 might be in decline, or something's blocking that production, or we just can't produce enough of it for the level of oxidative stress that we're exposed to. So there are a number of reasons why then the CoQ10 supplementation might be useful, and there's a lot of different words. It can become a bit confusing. So like CoQ10 is kind of the overarching, like what our body is producing, and then Ubiquinol is referring to it's essentially like the active component. So as with lots of things in the body, including things like omega-3, iron, like tons of things that we put into our body, they have to, or that our body creates, has to go through a conversion process, right? Even thyroid hormone has to go through a conversion process so that it's made into a usable form. So the ubiquinol with an L at the end, this is referring to it's the active form. So it's what our bodies convert it into. Ubiquinone it's like CoQ10 is typically produced in the form of ubiquinone, and then it turns into the ubiquinol. So what happens, a part of the reason that the aging process puts those levels in decline is not just because A, we're not producing as much, and B, we might not be able to keep up with the level that we need because of our exposure to oxidative stress. It's also because we're not metabolizing from ubiquinone to ubiquinol quite as well. And this becomes more noticeably, hey presto, around the age of 40, which is like the age that a lot of women are finding like it's last chance saloon for them, like when it comes to having a baby, or they feel that way. And then all of a sudden there's going to be this natural decline at that point in the body's ability to convert from ubiquinone to ubiquinol. So and for some people it can happen even earlier. So it's important for a lot of people, I think, to supplement with this, but the form that we're supplementing with again is super important.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some diet sources that can be helpful for CoQ10. What do we see in there?
Yeah, so if we think about where we might find CoQ10 in our own bodies, it's kind of similar in the animal world. So things or organs that need, or tissues that need a lot of energy, because it's to do with our mitochondria, our energy center in the body, in the cell. So organ meats are the highest, tend to be the highest in CoQ10, and that's because those are the tissues in the body that require the highest levels. so things like heart, liver, and kidney. And then some muscle meats as well, so pork, beef, and chicken, fatty fish as well, so things like trout, herring, mackerel, sardine. And then you do find some in the plant world as well, because plants are living, breathing things as well, and organisms too. So some plant tissue, if you want to call it that, is it will also contain CoQ10. So generally speaking, like if you are having just like a broad variety of plant foods, so things like legumes, lentils, nuts, seeds, certain fruits, vegetables like spinach, cauliflower, broccoli, like you kind of typically your brassica veg and your dark green leafies, then you will be getting some CoQ10 from those as well, but the amount may be negligible, and then it's a matter of your body having to do that conversion as well.
Yeah, I want to make sure that this can be a nice addition, but you need to take the supplementation, just and especially as we're aging, that it's depleting.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the I guess just to come back to some of the findings of things around CoQ10 in relation to fertility. In summary of some of the things that we've said, it's a potential stimulator for the mitochondrial function. We mentioned one human study there around the 600 milligrams a day, but there's been tons and tons of animal studies around CoQ10 as well, and it's particularly in like mice and rat studies. It's been shown time and time again to increase both like the number of eggs and also the live births, which is the most important thing. Great, our egg health's improved, but the real goal is the live birth at the end of it, right? So my studies have shown this connection to the egg quantity, the egg quality, and the connection to healthier live births. And there's been some indication around higher CoQ10 levels being found in follicular fluid, so the fluid around the eggs, which kind of can help to increase the egg quality as well. So it's just this strong association essentially with our gametes, with our sperm health and our egg health, and the importance of the CoQ10 / Ubiquinol. And I think just while we're talking about supplementation as well, it's worth noting that it can take a little bit of time for CoQ10 to actually build up in the tissue. So it is one of those ones that can be a bit of a slow burner, and like 4 to 6 months is the ideal time for what we're taking now. We're going to start to see the benefit of in 4 to 6 months time. So I know, a lot of people can feel really deflated if things aren't improving in 3 months or 2 months or 1 month or yesterday. And actually, it's just worth bearing in mind with some of this stuff that we are playing the long game.
And what do we notice? Is there anything we're noticing kind of in the first little while of taking it? Anything that we would see?
Like a lot of people do notice an improvement in energy, simply put, because we are literally helping with our cellular energy center, and our bodies are made of cells, and the mitochondria in the cell is responsible for energy. So lots of people do enjoy higher energy levels, like just not feeling as tired and fatigued. There are lots of reasons why people might be low on energy, but the CoQ10 piece can be helpful. It is worth noting that, like, if someone has so I mentioned like the statins piece already. So if someone's on statins, then they are more likely to be even more depleted in Ubiquinol or CoQ10 than the average person. So just worth bearing that in mind. It might take them a bit longer for that to build up to a good level again. And also for people who are on, or not who are on, but for people who struggle with like things like chronic fatigue can often be characterized by CoQ10. Like it can be a part of the picture. in chronic fatigue syndrome. So, if that is you, then possibly you might need a higher dose, and possibly you might need to be taking it for longer before you reap the benefits.
Yeah, and Katie and I have done a deep dive into the dangers of low-fat diets and why an optimal lipid panel matters for when you're trying to conceive. Do you want to kind of just give us a high-level summary there, kind of like why it's important for the cholesterol piece to for fertility for both men and women?
Yeah. I mean, it's this whole fear of fat, isn't it? And the right kind of fat is so important for health. Like, fat is one of the three macronutrients. The macronutrients are protein, carbohydrate, and fat, and that means we need, like, it is an integral part of what our bodies need to survive and to operate and to function normally. So, first of all, we live in a world whereby the unhealthy fats are just everywhere you look. Processed foods, foods with long shelf life, more than half the oils that you see on the supermarket shelves, they are trash, frankly, and they are no good. But yet on the other side of the coin, we've got this whole kind of massive fear, we've had it drummed into us since the 1970s of fat makes you fat. It puts you at risk of cardiovascular disease. And so people think that, like, low fat equals good. And so people who are trying to be more health conscious will often be drawn into these kind of marketing things of low fat products and think that they are better for them. Low fat is not necessarily better. And in fact, it's usually trash. So the right kind of fat could not be more important. And if you remember right back to the start of this conversation, what I said at the start was that CoQ10 is fat soluble. Yeah. So a part of the CoQ10 picture is that we need to have enough good dietary fat to be able to produce enough CoQ10 and to absorb it, to convert it. And also, with regards to this risk of cardiovascular disease and the statin piece, it's again, so much of the messaging around that is like, go low fat, stop eating fats, reduce your fat. Whereas we need, like, in terms of our sex hormone production, we need to have enough of the good type of fat. So the best kind of fats that we can be eating, like hands down the best type of fat, we did a whole podcast on this, is omega-3, right? But the issue with omega-3 is, it's largely found in fish, and we have to be careful with eating too much of the fish because of the heavy metal contaminants. But there are, lots of different types of fat that are good for us. Certain amounts of saturated fat, as long as if the fat that you're eating either has grown from a plant or come from an animal that has been fed its natural diet, then that is the kind of fat that we need to be focusing on.
So we see many people in our program too that typically more of the men that have been recommended a statin, or they're even on a statin. Any advice kind of for, obviously you've got to make sure you work with a practitioner on this, as you potentially move off the statin, but what, like, anything you would say is a couple first steps on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, you need to be careful with any prescribed medication, and it's, it is always really important to work with, the person that prescribed it, and anything before just coming off a medication. But it is just worth bearing in mind that statins do have a lot of side effects, unwanted side effects. And a lot of people are thrown onto statins without actually being given any dietary or lifestyle advice. Whereas actually, if you do have high cholesterol, like, first of all, let's delve into that and see what your cholesterol profile is actually doing, because overall cholesterol is not a very useful marker, because it's the equation of the good and the so-called bad cholesterol, which so it doesn't really tell us much. So it's worth doing a deep dive into your cholesterol, your actual cholesterol profile, including triglycerides. And it's also worth bearing in mind that in our practice, what we see is, like, insulin resistance and eating too much of the refined carbohydrates. It's not necessarily the fats that are driving this thing forward. It's the blood glucose imbalances. And yet nobody's talking about that. I mean, more and more people are, but lots of doctors aren't saying, look, how much sugar are you eating? Like, how much soda are you drinking? How much like coffee with a load of syrup are you having? How much white bread, white rice, chips, fries, all of these things, because all of those things are going to be leading to blood glucose imbalances and insulin resistance. And we see that this is one of the biggest drivers for metabolic conditions, of which cholesterol imbalances are a part.
Yeah. So it is, you take this sometimes, obviously sometimes medication can be part of the equation, but a lot of the times on the conventional side of things, it's a band-aid approach. No one's dug into what else is going on and the different systems in the body. And then as you get to the underlying missed healing opportunities, you can figure this out. So although medication can be part of it, it's the targeted diet and lifestyle changes that can really, shift the needle here. If you're dealing with male factor fertility issues or female factor fertility issues, it's to sort of figure this out. You can DIY it to a certain point, but then it gets a little more complex, and to have a practitioner or a guide is important. Okay.
If you are struggling with, if you've got a diagnosed medical condition and you're struggling with your fertility, it's like, we talk about this all the time, don't we, Sarah? The bodies, the systems in our bodies talk to each other. We are not a collection of standalone systems. And if there is an imbalance going on to the point of disease state, i.e., if you've got high blood pressure, high cholesterol, whatever it might be, and you're on medication for that, we need to look at that in a bit more detail, because that could be the thing that is like driving that inflammation to a level that is impacting the fertility. It's really important to look at this stuff, and people turn around and say, oh, I don't understand why I could possibly be struggling. I don't get why my sperm count is on the floor when when my health is fine, apart from the fact that I've got uncontrolled diabetes and and all this stuff. Like, that's irrelevant, right? No, it's not irrelevant. It is really significant and a part of your puzzle.
Yeah, it's not myopically focusing on the sperm or the eggs. There's other things going on in your health, and we have a deep dive into your health history using functional testing, and then we can discover what it is, right? Whereas, conventional medicine, you get the diagnosis, you're told you better rush like crazy to the fertility clinic. Maybe I've had people tell me that they've been told to do an aggressive IVF because they're running out of time, which is the exact opposite of what you need to do to be able to receive your child. And it's to work on your health now, taking some targeted fundamental changes to optimize the health of you and your partner. You either get pregnant naturally, or if you do need IVF, you're going to really improve your chances of pregnancy success, of it actually working. So, and then back to the CoQ. That was a little rant there. Back to the.
We get it though, don't we, Sarah?
There you go. Yep. So back to the CoQ10. Anything as far as one that we're looking for, that sort of some ingredients, anything that should be in it, then I guess that we're looking for in a good CoQ10.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the key thing is making sure. I mean, ideally, we want to be looking at a CoQ10 that is in an oil base, because it is an oil based product, and so usually we are looking at like the soft gel type capsules that contain oil and that can then transport to the right place in the body. We're looking ideally again at Ubiquinol as opposed to Ubiquinone. And that's because of this conversion. And as we get older and more decrepit, we're less likely to be able to convert that Ubiquinone to Ubiquinol. And then sometimes there can be cofactors as well. So I know that as part of the Fab Fertile method, we're looking at a product that also contains this with G is the shortened version, and I'll attempt to pronounce the lengthier version, which is geraniol, and the GG actually helps to like get that CoQ10 to the, or ubiquinol to the right place in the body. And it also helps to support that. If you remember at the start, I said that we do produce CoQ10 on our own. It is endogenous, so we do produce it. And so what the GG does is actually help to support that endogenous production of CoQ10, as well as help us to absorb the supplemental CoQ10.
And so how much should we take? I know some of the studies are telling us there, and what are we seeing? What should we take?
Yeah. So look, I think as a standard approach, 1 to 200 milligrams is a good starting point when it comes to fertility. This is something that across the board, probably most people who are trying might benefit from taking, but there are certain circumstances by which more might be appropriate. And so, I will often recommend higher doses in women who have are on the, not that I love this term, but on the advanced maternal age side of things. So women who are pushing into the late 30s and into the 40s, those may benefit from the higher doses of CoQ10, and then what it's going by the research that was the human study that was done that looked at the 600 milligrams in split doses. So there are some circumstances by which I would recommend 200 milligrams 3 times a day, but this is kind of to be done on a case by case basis, because it really does depend on what else you've got going on, how many other supplements you're taking, what medications you're on, and a myriad of other factors. So it's as with any supplement, more is not necessarily better, and working with a practitioner to actually guide you through so that you're taking the right supplements for you is super important.
Any side effects we would notice with CoQ10?
Usually pretty well tolerated, to be honest. Yeah, it's just something that might be worth titrating. Like if you are having a high dose, as with any other supplement, it's often worth titrating up. In very rare instances, people may find that that their anxiety increases, but I've not seen that personally with any clients. I've heard other people who have had people where their anxiety has increased a bit, and usually if something like that does happen, or you have a reaction to any supplement, the best approach is talk to the person who recommended it to you and get some advice. B, either slow down or stop the supplement, and then sometimes it's then titrating and going for a lower dose and just seeing at what dose your body is happy.
Any final thoughts on CoQ10, Katie?
Just to say that there's a reason that it's part of the fundamental Fab Fertile program, and hopefully it's come across today the importance of CoQ10 for those gametes, for those egg cells and the sperm cells. It's integral to their cellular function, and so without it, we could be that could be part of the reason that you're having unexplained infertility, or that your egg quality is bad. If you've had IVF and it hasn't worked, and you've been told that the quality of the eggs or the quality of the embryos is not great, or if if you're one of these people that doesn't respond so well to stims, if you're not getting follicles dominating, then there's anything to do with your egg health, it is worth considering, and the same with sperm too. So it's a super important nutrient, and it's just great that we know so much about it.
Agree. Love it. Awesome. Thank you.